I asked her story, and her story is she had cancer. And she was eating the standard American diet, and with the vegan diet, she cured her cancer.
Hi, and welcome to the Heart Leader Podcast, where our heart and mind align. I am your host, Amber, and today I am joined by David Warr. War. Can't think of you and war in the same word together. I think that's the disconnect.
Think of this. Do you remember the Dan Millman book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior?
Yes.
Well, I'm a warrior.
Okay.
I'm a peaceful warrior.
You are very much a peaceful warrior. So, David, the reason I have such a disconnect with his name being War until now is because he has a heart of gold. He is a member in our local Phoenix community who owns a restaurant called the Giving Tree Cafe. He's a restaurateur from way back before this single restaurant, and he might share with us a little bit about that. He's even built kind of a community feel within the restaurant. And it goes back to a motto or a creed that he has created within the restaurant that everyone walking in can see and know and take part in. So I want to start with that. This way of being that you have created as kind of the heartbeat, the center of your restaurant. Tell us about that creed and what it means to you and your staff.
Well, thank you for that, Amber. I really appreciate being here. There's so many levels to it. I'm kind of hesitating a little bit. I think that the main thing is when you walk in the front door, you see written right on the ground, "Welcome to Space of Love." And so that does a couple of things. It lets the new participants coming in, the new guests coming in, see that we are committed to our version of what love is. More than that, though, it raises the bar. In other words, if I'm having a bad day or one of my staff is having a bad day, they can't take it out on a guest the way we've seen that happen in other commercial establishments, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not a loving thing to do. So if that happens and we're not in our best mood, we'll just take a deep breath, we'll focus, we'll center, maybe going back and meditate for a few minutes and come back and we're ready to come from the heart and deliver the service that we're here to deliver to our guests. So it raises the bar, but also lets people know that things are going to be a little bit done differently here. We're not going to shuffle people in, feed them as quickly as we can and shuffle them out. We're going to treat them the way, quite frankly, the way your family would treat you if you came in as a guest at your aunt's house. So, for instance, I don't talk about this too much. I don't want to get too far off subject here, but love has some components in it that oftentimes people either aren't aware of or they don't think of consciously, but love has got certain components that we put into our established service, and they are caring, accountability, responsibility, trust, commitment, knowing, and giving. Those are the ingredients that go into love. If you're doing those things all of the time, pretty much you can guarantee you're doing a loving thing, unless you're doing them for an adverse or underhanded way. So when we train our people, we train them to not just put the fork on the table, but do it in a caring way. Show people that you really care about them. Or, in other words, maybe the guest didn't have to ask for a fork. Maybe you saw that it dropped on the floor and you're going to run and get one and you're going to put it on the table. There's a way that we can do that, which not only shows the guests that we're taking care of their minimal needs, but we truly care about their outcome. And there's a difference there, and people can feel that difference. And the difference is love.
Yes, 100%. And you can tell that you're successful at that based on the way that it ripples out into our community. I didn't know about your restaurant. I heard about you as an individual and how much you had given back to the community that was around you through your restaurant. And so to have such a connection to you as an individual, your restaurant as a space, your food as a means of nutrition, to have all of that be spoken about through an entire community of people. To me, we were talking and you had mentioned a person can be really measured by the deeds, right?
Well, yeah, there's that biblical passage, you will know him or you'll know them by their deeds.
Right. And at the end of the day, your deeds have been echoed out far past the food. The food is amazing, and we want to talk about the food. But the food is one aspect of a whole community that you've created that then goes out into the larger community as a whole. Phoenix being one of them, Sedona being another. But I guarantee in Arizona as a whole, people have heard about what you're doing outside of Phoenix and outside of Sedona. I think a lot of people would like to know, how did you do that? How do you get to a point where, as a restaurant owner who could have done what you said, like shuffle people in, shuffle people out, did you get to a point where you're not taking people through your door and just handing them a box full of food and saying, have a good day? You created something where people feel a connection to you as the restaurateur, to Giving Tree as a community space, and to the food that you serve as something more than just what they shove in their face.
Thank you. You've asked a couple of different questions there, so I'm going to answer a couple of different ways, if you don't mind.
Of course.
The first thing I want to say is that Giving Tree Cafe is meant to be, quite frankly, it's the change that I'd like to see. So through the years, I've seen businesses go from mom and pop businesses up and down the main street in the town I grew up in to big box stores. And the big box stores offer a wider variety of products and more technologically improved products and things faster and the newest versions of whatever it is I'm interested in. And yet, part of what is taken away is that human connection in those stores. Now, I'm not saying it's completely devoid. And there are certain individuals that are, of course, going to be the outliers that are going to not fall into this category. But by and large, when you go into a box store, you don't expect somebody to say, oh, Amber, hi, it's David. Welcome in. Here, we've got some new things over here. Pretty much people ignore you if you try to make eye contact with those people. Oftentimes they'll look away. They don't want to have any engagement whatsoever with their guests, because to those staff, their job is what their manager told them to do, which is to stock the shelves, and they've got so much going on that they don't want to be taken away and, oh, do you know where the earbuds are or whatever? They don't want to be taken off task. They've got to do their job. And they've forgotten that the reason that they have a job is for you. And so I see that happening more and more in our society. So when my daughter wanted to open up the restaurant in Sedona, which she owns, called Chocolate Tree, I said, well, we're going to do business our way. And she said, absolutely, Dad. We're going to do it. We call it divine commerce. We're going to do divine commerce in our restaurant, and it's going to be great. And I'm kind of thinking, okay, well, this is going to be two things. It's going to be a 100% organic vegan restaurant here in Sedona, but it's also going to be a social experiment to see if divine commerce would actually work. And it worked really well up there, so we do it down at Giving Tree Cafe in Phoenix as well. And part of what the divine commerce has to do with is we don't put making the most amount of money the fastest at the hierarchy, which is what most of the box stores do. And it's a shame, because not only do they have it in their criteria for what they want to do, but actually they're almost required by law to do it, because when they have shareholders that invest money in them, their job is to make the most amount of money for their shareholders. And oftentimes it's the community be damned. And so they've kind of put themselves into this corner where the profitability of this quarter becomes such an important thing, and their livelihood depends on it, and their own jobs depend on it. So that's what they focus on. And it didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen even in a decade, but it happened after several decades of modification and evolution. That's kind of how our business is run now. So if you just do this one thing in business, if you take making the most amount of money the fastest out of that top spot in the hierarchy, and you put at the top spot in the hierarchy, I'm going to do what's best for the planet. If you just start there, number one, pollution pretty much comes to an end. people it's a big subject in today's world. I don't want to get into the politics of it. You can even argue about the climate situations, a lot of different ways to look at that, but you can't argue with the fact that we're destroying the rainforests and we're polluting our planet at such a quick rate that there's almost no place to put the garbage anymore. And the air quality and the water quality has become severe, and there's huge tracts of land that are untillable now and unarable. And so something needs to change. And by taking care of the land and taking care of Mother Earth first, you change a lot of that. And so because that's our hierarchy value, one of the offshoots of that is we must be 100% organic. I have been for over 50 years myself. However, organic didn't start first. It's not like, let's open up an organic vegan restaurant and then go from there. We wanted to do a restaurant that treated the planet with respect and dignity first. And so we must be organic. We can't fluctuate from that, because if we do, then we're off purpose. We might as well just close our doors. Does that make sense?
It does.
And so if we want the planet to be first, and then our next hierarchy of values is do what's best for the community, then we have to take care of community and treat everyone as ourselves. Now, if we're coming from a place of love, and love to me means seeing myself in you, and you see yourself in me, then you're my sister already, and I'm going to be loving with you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so because we're coming from a place of love, and my hierarchy of values is taking care of community second, even before my own needs are met. It doesn't mean that I'm altruistic, by the way. It just means that the hierarchy of values is I take care of you first. And I know that when I take care of the other, then my business will be taken care of. I don't sweat that at night. I don't have any fear of that not happening, because it has to happen. It's a universal principle, and it's a lot stronger than I am. So if I just take care of my guests the way I want to be taken care of, I know that my business will be taken care of. Whereas the modern approach is you better make sure that your bottom line is taken care of first, and you make as much money as you possibly can. And if that person is not a repeat customer ever again, that's okay. There'll be more because we've got this marketing budget here, and we'll just market to more people, and we'll keep people coming through the doors. But see, that system is not sustainable. And if you look at our manifesto on the wall, sustainability is number one. It's the first thing we talk about. So sustainability actually, in a way, comes before love. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because they're two parts of the same. But if you're going to be sustainable, then you need to come from a place of love. It's the only thing that's really sustainable in the whole universe. It's the only thing that we can count on. So nowhere in sustainability does it say make the most amount of profit. So we take care of Mother Earth first, and then our community, and then our staff, and then our purveyors, and then ourselves. So we're in the top 5. But we make sure that everyone else is taken care of first, and then we take care of ourselves. And by doing that, one of the things that happens is interesting, and this is kind of often a business tangent. When you run your business like that, then one of the things that you develop is a mutual love, and part of that mutual love is trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when our guests trust that we're, for instance, 100% organic, and they trust that we're 100% gluten-free, and they trust that our food tastes really good, then because we built trust in them, they're going to become more likely to become repeat customers. And so that means I actually spend less money on marketing. And in the final analysis, I truly believe that our business is more profitable than the ones that don't develop love and don't develop trust, and the guests don't really trust them. And so they need to spend, 20%, 30% of their budget on marketing to continually have new customers. So I don't have to do that. And so in the long run, it makes sense to do business this way. There are other aspects to it, other tangents to it, but that's why we do business this way, because quite frankly, eventually we're all going to be in our demise, and we're all going to look around and say, what did I do with myself in the world? And I don't care how much money you have, we know that we can't take it with us. And I'll bet you almost anybody who's maybe in hospice or in a situation like that, if you were to say to them, I know you made $25 million, Bob, but for $1 million, would you like an extra month on this planet? Almost everybody would say yes, right? And so it's not the amount of money that you take with you. The reason they want that extra month is so they can tell their family how much they love them. And they can tell their friends and their coworkers, and they can tell their community how much they appreciate what they've done for them and how they built their character and how juicy their life has become because of that interaction. And so what we're doing is just doing it first so that when that time comes, we don't have any regret. We don't have any issues that we would maybe wish we could have done things a little bit differently. And so building community is a really important thing to us, and we love doing that very much. It's one of the things that has deep, deep roots in the tree so that, again, it makes things more solid. It makes things more stable. Does that make sense?
It really does.
Yeah.
And it's very backward from the way, as you were pointing out, many businesses, especially in the restaurant industry, do business right now.
Yeah, the industry's really evolved to a point where there's almost no easy solution to it. One of the things that's happened in this world in the last 50 years that I've watched, my first restaurant I owned 49 years ago.
Wow.
So I've seen a lot of evolution in the business.
Yeah.
And it used to be that fast food restaurants, we didn't laugh about them or make fun of them, but it was just one of those things that we would do once in a while.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that we would do 3 meals a day for sure. It was unheard of to do that kind of a thing, like to go to a place and get a coffee and a sandwich in the morning and then go there for lunch. And then maybe on the drive home from work, we'd go to that same place and grab a bag of their stuff and take it home. That was unheard of. But because those places have become so popular, the population at large is used to a very quick way to satisfy their need to have a meal. Now, I said have a meal. I didn't say be nurtured.
Yes.
Because we all know that there's very little nutrition in those meals.
Yes.
And yet, the convenience and the price and the flavor of those meals has somehow taken a front seat, and in the back seat is the nutritional value.
It's not even just about the nutrition. It's about the energy that goes into the creation of that. And I think we need to touch on that as well. I don't want to interrupt your flow of this, but nurturing isn't only about the nutrition. It is about everything that leads up to it getting in your hand when it's in that bag.
That's a really great point, Amber. And that is that we all know that we're all energy. Everything is energy, and we're all energy, and the food we eat and this table is all energy. And so when a farmer plants their seeds with loving intention and nurtures those seeds with love, and the shoots come up and they're nurtured with pure water and pure ingredients to make them grow strong and vital, and that plant takes in the nutrients from the ground and then produces a fruit, and we harvest that fruit with love and gratitude, and we box it up, and we are happy as we drive down into the garden, into the farmer's market from the garden, and we share our produce lovingly with our community. It's a different experience than a factory farm that's doing tens of thousands of acres at a time, and they're using pesticides and herbicides and Roundup and glyphosate, etc. They're hardly ever touch their food. It's all done mechanically, and the cleaning and the washing is done mechanically, etc. And the food is boxed up mechanically, and it's put on the shelves mechanically. And what you're eating then, it's a far cry from the first example I gave, but the energetics, and some people can see energy. The people who can see energy will look at that and say, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. There's not a single vibrant atom in that body of work there. And yet over here, it's teeming with energy. That's the one I'll go for. And unfortunately, in our world, like I was saying earlier, that energetic vitality isn't noticed as much. And so we're going with this cheaper, faster, more economical product over here that appears to be the same, but it's light years away. It's no longer food, actually. And so there's such a thing as food production, and there's also such a thing as meal production. And unfortunately, most of the people on our planet now that are eating meals aren't eating real food. And that disconnect is part of what we're here to be the solution that we'd like to see, be the change that we'd like to see. So that now we can nurture people with real, authentic food and do it in a very real, authentic way. And that's what develops the community.
You talk about when you say real, authentic food. What is real, authentic food to you? from your perspective?
Without getting religious about it, it's food that's actually given to us by God and Mother Earth. It's the authentic heirloom food that we're meant to consume and enjoy here on the planet. That's the food that we consume for hundreds of thousands of years. And it's only in the last 120 years or so that food has become more processed and more factory produced. And in our love or even lust for science or the latest, newest technology, I guess technology more than science, in the last 50, 60 years, whatever new technological advancement has been made in food processing has somehow been heralded as this next wonderful thing. So food becomes ground up and processed and freeze-dried. And that's a big deal now. So we can take what used to be something that we would have to fresh squeeze a lemon or fresh squeeze ginger and put it together and make a ginger lemonade. Now all we have to do is take a teaspoon and pour this powder into a glass and mix it with water, and we've got exactly the same thing, right? No. It's not exactly the same thing.
Not even close to the same.
But because of the marketing and because of our either failure to be critical thinker or just because we believe it because it's on TV or it's on the billboards or whatever, we are told that it's the same thing. And I guarantee that your grandparents would have said, that's not the same thing. But maybe your parents that were given that when they were children maybe didn't know any better. But then your children, if they're told that this is what lemonade is, they're going to believe it because there's nothing else to compare it to. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so when with the evolution that this has happened, it's taken 3, 4, or 5 generations for this to happen. We think that food comes from shelves in a place called the grocery store. But our grandparents remember that food is something that comes out of orchards and gardens. See the difference? Mm-hmm. Oftentimes we're so in a hurry and in a rush to produce. We just had Thanksgiving and people are in a rush to produce these beautiful Thanksgiving dinners that we don't give much conscious thought to where our food comes from. And yet that's such an important part of the energy that we're putting on that plate for Thanksgiving. It's not just rushing to the grocery store to get a few things and putting it together in a nice way and making it look beautiful and fancy, which is wonderful if you're doing that. However, there's so much more in the consciousness behind how that product got to market.
And that was one of our first conversations. When we sat down, we were talking about like the whole, from the moment it is seeded and grown to the moment it gets in front of us to be consumed, how many of us know that whole flow and process and the energetics that it goes through as well, which you just talked about so beautifully. Like if it's not handled at all, or even if it is handled and someone is having a really bad day and they're preparing your food, like all of that anger is going into your food. And like, really, how do you consume that and not have some of that kind of flow in with you, with the food you're eating?
Yeah, obviously as energy workers, we have an answer for that. And there are processes that we go, and I think that's probably one of the reasons that we pray over our food, right?
Yes.
So we can cleanse it and make sure that that thing that we're going to put into our bodies now is as pure and wholesome and as easily assimilatable as we can possibly make it. And yet it's so much more, it's so much easier to get that done when we know that that came from our orchard, that came from our garden. And we're the ones that actually planted the seed 20, 30, 40 years ago, or a week ago, whatever it was, that we're planting the seeds of in the case of the sprouts, for instance. And we know the name of the farmer that we bought that food from. Or if we don't know the name of the farmer, at least we know the name of the grocery store that we brought that from, or we went to the farmer's market to touch base with those people. And we could feel the love and we could feel the energy of it. And we can actually see and feel that this is something that's got vibrance for me. And that's the one that we're going to take. It's a huge difference. And it's something that is learnable and teachable that we're doing our best to bring back into the community so people can actually get an idea of what it's like to eat a wholesome, vibrant meal and not one that was packaged and frozen and then taken out of a package and thrown in a deep fryer or thrown on a griddle and put a nice sauce on top of it. And so it looks really pretty. The lettuce is maybe cleaned in chlorine bleach, or what they do with that is kind of funny. And yeah, the two meals can look very similar, And yet one has got almost no nutritional value and almost no energetic value, and the other one is teeming with energy, with loads of vibrant nutrition.
The first time coming in and sitting down in Giving Tree, you're not only overwhelmed by how great everything smells and just how great everything tastes, you have a lot of community aspects that are in your space. The way that you considered how you can put tables on rollers to move them around so you can have things like yoga occur in your restaurant.
Right.
You sell items for members of the community that are in line with what your principles are at Giving Tree Cafe. Talk to us about things like that, because again, it was such a sensory experience walking in and seeing things like that, that it is community. It feels more like you're walking into your family member's very large kitchen that has kind of a off to the side family room where everyone can gather and just do whatever events you want to do as a family. And that was so different.
Thank you, Amber. That's actually what we're going for, so thanks for that. I'm going to talk about the aroma when you first walk into the restaurant, just for a minute, and then we'll talk about some of the community aspects. One of the things that we do at the restaurant, you probably know this, is everything that we serve our guests, we actually prepare ourselves. And so we're baking bread every morning. We, if you're going to buy our veggie burger, for instance, we make the patty, we make the cheese, we make the mustard, we make the ketchup. We not only make the bread, we grind the flour to make the bread. So everything's as fresh and wholesome as we can possibly get it. And so when you walk into a different restaurant, you hear the music and you see the hustle and bustle of the crowd, but you know what? You probably won't smell the food. And it dawned on me after I was checking out a few restaurants before we opened up here, and I thought, you know what? I can't smell the food because it's all frozen and it's all being put on a griddle where you can't get the aromas. But when we pull the buns out of the oven, when we pull the fresh brownies out of the oven, the whole restaurant's filled with these aromas. And you can always smell the garlic cooking or whatever. It's just a different experience for people. And again, getting back to something I said earlier, I think it builds trust. You can feel like that's authentic food that aroma is. So that's that part. As far as the community, there's so many people in Phoenix and all over the world, actually. They're doing so many wonderful things. So I met a woman who she blends her own organic teas. And she wants to put her teas on the shelves. So she's from Phoenix, and her teas are all 100% organic, and she's hand harvests some of her food, some of her herbs, etc. And they're fabulous formulations. And so I think a different business might look at this and say, well, the price point just isn't there. It's not going to work for me. I'm sorry, but go somewhere else. But that individual is somebody that I want to see prosper almost more than anyone else. The fact that she's a single person and blending her own blends there, and they're fabulous, by the way, just amazing teas. And so we put her teas on the shelves. And there's another woman here in Mesa that's got a beautiful tincture business. And she goes out to the desert and hand harvests a lot of her own products. And so her products are on her shelves. And we have another woman, she comes in and just such a beautiful woman. And she's very, very humble, and she's very quiet, and she's very demure. And she says, I've got this cheese product that I made here. And, like I said, we make our own cheese. And I don't want to sound like I know it all, because I don't. But I've been making vegan cheese for a long, long time. And so I don't need someone to help me make cheese. But she's got a powder that people can put this cheese together and mix it. And they've got their own really wonderful, organic, vegan, gluten-free cheese. I asked her story, and her story is she had cancer. And she was eating the standard American diet. And with the vegan diet, she cured her cancer. So she became gung-ho about veganism and wants to share her veganism with other people. So she sells her cheese so that she can have the wherewithal to assist other people, especially women of color, that have got serious health issues, so that she can help them. Now, am I going to help that person at all? Absolutely. Now, is this good for my bottom line? I don't know. I haven't really done the work, so I can't say that it is or isn't. But by assisting this person to be vibrant and to be financially healthy in our community, I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I guarantee she's going to do some good. And so we can help her do good. And when other people hear these stories and I tell them, they say, where is it? I want to buy a package of that. And see, we all want to assist others that are doing good things. It's our human nature. But when we go to the box stores, where is that? It's all got the same packaging from the same 4 or 5 companies with the same kind of logos and the same ideals. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's not really benefiting directly our community as powerfully as working with these individual people. The chai tea. That's another thing that we're just starting to carry. It's just a beautiful thing. We've got somebody who's doing so many wonderful things. Now, she's not local, but that's another example of what we can do. When we buy locally from organic farmers, we can help out the local economy because those local farmers don't hire people from Indonesia or China to pick their food. They hire people that live here in Phoenix to pick their food. So when my dollars go to that local farmer, his dollars go to the local pickers that also live maybe down the street from us. And they're also spending their money in the local community here. So there's power in that. I don't have to talk about that because we all know that there's power there. So it's nice to be able to support those local individuals that are doing great things in the community that are also in line with what we do. And we have really strict criteria. Many, many people come to us and I can't serve their product because we're 100% organic, we're 100% gluten-free, we're 100% soy-free, and we're 100% vegan. And so there aren't many products that are like that. I found one person at the local vegan meetup who meets all that criteria, and she has a company called Earth Sugar, and her products are amazing. And she puts together, do you remember when I made the pie the other day?
Uh-huh.
It had almonds and dates and coconut in it.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the basic pie crust, especially for the raw pies. That's what she makes. She makes cookies and cakes out of that same stuff, and it's delicious. And so she gets it. She gets how important gluten-free is. She gets how important organic is. There are a lot of people in our community that are eating vegan, which is wonderful. Hallelujah. But they're not eating organic, so they're still eating a lot of glyphosate and pesticides and canola oil, etc. And I think eventually they'll figure it out and come around and take care of their health, because by eating vegan, you're doing a wonderful thing for as far as animal suffering, but you still might be contributing to your own demise and bad health. Does that make sense?
It does.
I mean, like a bag of Doritos and a Diet Coke is a vegan meal, and a lot of vegans do eat that way. But it's not healthy for us, and we all know that. So healthy, vital food, real food is valuable. It's very important. It's got that life force energy that we talked about.
Yeah, and I always come back to that. For me, all things are energy. It always comes down to the energetic properties from beginning to it's just a constant stream. So understanding from the point of the planting of the seed to the moment that it shows up in front of me, I desire to understand the whole journey. And so one of the very first connection points we had was very much over that part of the journey. And I know how dedicated you are to that journey, so much so that you not only want to have one of these amazing restaurants here in Phoenix, you want to make certain that something like this is available for everyone, everywhere, at least within range that they could get to a restaurant that they could eat at. Because for me, for the longest time, there hasn't been a lot of places or spaces where Austin and I could eat, because we are gluten-free, vegan, very conscious of the energy of food and how it actually nourishes our life force energy, not just our physical body, but our life force energy. And you don't find many places that have that same connection to the flow to the earth, the flow to the form, the flow to all 5 bodies that we have, not just the single one body. But you have the connection to all of that. And then when you mentioned your goal was to make certain that there were enough of these types of restaurants around that everyone could have access, I was like, okay, how do we help? How do we take this forward? So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, again, it goes back to being the change that we'd like to see. Again, we've seen the evolution of our culture, our society, our cities, where the majority of the people here in America live, that are food deserts. And it's really quite abominable what's happening to not just the food supply, but how it's affecting us physically, and how we're getting sicker than ever, with more cancers than ever, and more obesity than ever, and more diabetes than ever. There is a correlation here. And getting back to a natural, more fulfilling way to eat is extremely important. And so when we get to the point where, yes, that's our lifestyle, that's how we're living, we usually get to the point where you and Austin are, well, okay, well, we're just eating at home from now on. There's no place to go. And so that's part of the void that Giving Tree Cafe is filling. And up in Sedona, my daughter's restaurant, Chocolate Tree, Organic Oasis, also fulfills that, because we are, like you said, 100% organic, gluten-free, vegan, soy-free. And it's a little bit more difficult, I'll be honest with you, to make food that way, but it's not crazy difficult. It's not like it can't be done. Clearly, we're doing it. And if every community had a place like this, if you make the decision that you want to have healthy food, there will be a place for you to go out. Because let's face it, some days you just don't want to cook. And it's fun to cook, but it's also fun to have somebody else do it for you. And so one of the ways we're going forward is, the original vision was to put 5 or 6 of these in the Phoenix area, these Giving Tree Cafes, and then move that out across the country. And for a couple of different reasons, including we opened up a couple of months before, can I say COVID?
Mm-hmm, you can.
Before
the C
COVID,
word.
before COVID happened. And so that kind of put a damper on moving out. But one of the things that happened, maybe the silver lining for us, is we created a dish called the Crunch Wrap. Now, we didn't really create it. There's another restaurant here in America that serves these things. And one of my staff said, well, you say you can make anything vegan. Can you make one of these? And I said, I don't know, what is it? And they said, it's a Crunch Wrap. And I said, I still don't know what it is. And they said, it's, well, here's a picture of it. And I said, oh yeah, I can make that. So we started making these in the restaurant, and people started really liking them. And so we put them on the menu, and it became our instant bestseller. It's not just our bestseller every week or every month, but every single day we sell more Crunch Wraps than anything else. And so now we've got 5 different flavors on the menu, and we're going forward with putting out what we call Crunch Wrap City. And there'll be Crunch Wrap cities in a lot of the communities, because it's a little bit easier to scale it out. It's a little bit easier to do these 5 or 6 items on a menu, easier to make it in a drive-through situation. So again, people can still satisfy their quickness need, and they can satisfy now also their health and their organic need and their vegan need by going through and getting a quick Crunch Wrap from Crunch Wrap City. And so we feel like if we do 5 or 6 of those in the Phoenix area, we can scale that out around the countryside. Be easy to do a couple hundred of those in a year or two. So that's kind of where the direction we'll be taking.
Which will still hold your, even at the faster pace, or the ability to come in and get it a little bit faster should they desire, will still hold the same energetic intent, I would take it. Just out of curiosity?
Well, the answer I'm about to give you is kind of what you've already said. Regardless of how fast something is, love is faster. And so when your baseline intent is loving intent, you can rapidly do things and they can still be lovingly. You don't have to cook a tomato sauce for 16 hours, for instance, and that's love. But if you do it quickly, that isn't. Love has got no speed to it. And so, yes, there's definitely going to be a tremendous amount of grounded, loving intent in everything that we do. And people will be able to feel it driving through the restaurant. Maybe not as completely as being completely bathed in a sound bath that we do on Sundays as well. It's part of the community contribution that we do. But they'll be able to feel it nonetheless. It'll be palpable.
I just desired to put that in there because I know we were talking about you can walk in, and a lot of these places you just go in and you're like pushed out as fast as you go in. But a lot of that is more about the energetics of, you can feel that people don't actually want to be there, and there's a disconnect from the food and the flow and all of it. And as you just said, yes, part of it is just about the disconnect of not even making eye contact with one another. But a lot of it comes down to, you can just feel that there's no connection with the process either. And we were having dinner with some friends the other night, Austin and I, and they were talking about honoring the process. Sometimes, love comes through often with just honoring the process. And when we're so disconnected from the process because we're not even present in the moment that the process is occurring, then there's really challenging moments of how can I put love into the food that I'm making if I'm not even present when I'm making it. So to know that you're creating a repeatable model where you're bringing on people who are present in what they're doing and the love is going into the food and there's still all that rich energy, I feel like that's the point that's being made here.
That's exactly right. The way we prepare food, it truly is an art. And again, regardless of how fast it is, we make every single ingredient ourselves. We don't buy flour tortillas, for instance. We don't even have flour tortillas in the restaurant. We make all that ourselves. We grind our own batter to make the wrap that goes around the crunch wrap, for instance. We make those veggie burgers that are stuffed in there by us. We do that ourselves. We don't buy packaged organic vegetables, which you can get. They're already washed and chopped for you. We get the organic produce and we're cleaning it ourselves and we're chopping it ourselves. So there's a tremendous amount of energy that goes into the setup process so that we can produce food quickly when the guest orders the food. Yet there's a tremendous amount of loving intent that goes into all those processes. Even the water that we wash the produce in is reverse osmosis water. We've got a whole reverse osmosis water system in the restaurant so that when people come in and drink water or use the water that we use for the soups and sauces, etc., the water that we use to wash the vegetables, of course, is all reverse osmosis water. One of the ways we help to give back to the community, by the way, is if you bring your water bottle in with you, we'll fill it up for free. The local stores want to do that and charge you for it, which I get it. It's a commodity. However, healthy water, pure water is really our birthright. Clean air is our birthright. And because we do have pure water at the restaurant, we give it to our guests for free. We don't think that charging for something that's our birthright makes sense. We've got the system installed. Why not, right?
What I'm really super excited about, I'm going to bring this up now, is individuals will be able to see like behind the scenes of your restaurant very soon.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
With an amazing cooking show that you agreed to do with us here in Suivera. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
What I've noticed through the years is that people eat our food and they think it's so complex. They think that it's, wow, I could never do anything like this. That sauce was amazing, or that the way you put the vegetables on the plate was just amazing. And quite frankly, the way we cook, it's simpler than the way most other places cook. We don't use preservatives and pesticides and herbicides, and that actually makes it complex. Our food is organic out of the ground, given as little amount of preparation or processing as we can. And so our food is actually very simple. And so one of the things I've noticed through the other cooking demonstrations I've done through the years is that once people see me do it, they say, oh, I can. He's right. That is simple. I can do that. But it's reading a recipe makes it look difficult. But when you actually watch somebody do it, it's really pretty simple. And so I'm really excited about doing some of the simple things like soups and stews and sauces so that people can see exactly how simple it is. I've got one chocolate pudding pie on the menu, and I can make that whole chocolate pudding pie in about 3 minutes. And when people eat it, they go, I've never had anything like this. It's so amazing. Like, this has got to be so complex. It's so delicious. No, it just takes 3 minutes to make, and the ingredients probably are already in your cabinet. And, they're all common ingredients. There's nothing really super special about it that you've got to go to Tanzania to get a special kind of vanilla or something. It's just all right in your cupboard already. And so being able to present that to people is going to be really exciting for us. And one of the other things that we do that's a little bit different, I get this a lot from people. They'll eat a meal and say, wow, this is the greatest meal I've had in a long time. I know there's no way you would possibly share the recipe with me. And I stop them right there and say, yes, I will. Anybody that wants a recipe from me, just email me and I'll give you the recipe. And when I tell people that, they go, wow, like, why would you do that? I mean, this is your reason for being. I mean, what if everybody had this recipe? I said, that's what I want. I want the whole world to be able to make food like this. It's not just for me. And by the way, like I said earlier, I don't have all the answers. but I have been doing it a long time, and I love sharing. And my vision is to see the whole world eating healthy, vibrant food. Well, that's not going to happen if I keep everything to myself, right? And again, that's part of I guess that's that corporate paradigm again, right? That if you've got a trade secret, then you certainly don't want to share that, because then what if everybody else does what you're doing? Well, that's my vision. If everybody else is doing what I'm doing, I'm going to retire. I'm going to go to the Bahamas and I'm just going to relax. When I see the whole world is healthy and vibrant and people are sharing and everybody's joyful and happy and there's not any hunger in the world, then I can relax.
And I love that. And so this show, you're offering some of these recipes, you're giving folks a behind the scenes look into how you make this amazing food. And one of the things that we caught, because I'm getting to edit and look at these things, is the attention to detail and how even the crunch wrap wraps are made, because they were preparing them in the background. You had everyone lovingly preparing for the day while we were filming. And so you can see in the background the attention to detail. And people were like talking and chatting and singing, and like people were truly happy working in the kitchen as the food was being made at the same time we were filming the show.
Yeah, it is an interesting dynamic where, I'll be frank with you, one of the people is recently come back to our kitchen. They went to work someplace else and they were getting paid a little bit more money. And she called me about a month ago and said, like, I can't stand it where I'm working. I'm making tons of money, but I want to come back. It just feels better working there. And, you know, it's funny. We all need to be paid enough to pay our bills. We don't want to be working and doing something that we love to do, but we can't make ends meet. That's not fun. But at a certain point, that energy in our heart, that camaraderie that we feel in a kitchen like we have there's some value in that can't be measured at all, but certainly can't be measured in dollars and cents.
So the cooking show is called The Art of Cooking from the Heart, and we should be launching at the beginning of the year, January 2023. They'll be able to catch it. Now, if someone wanted to look you up, wanted to learn more about the Giving Tree Cafe or the sister restaurant owned by your daughter up in Sedona, how would they do that?
Probably the easiest way for us is givingtreecafe.com or chocolatetree.com for Sedona, for my daughter's restaurant in Sedona. Or they can give us a call. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok, for Pete's sake.
We're not even on TikTok yet. You've got us beat.
It was kind of an accident, but a fun accident that happened. I guess that's the best way. Phone number, should you do that?
You're welcome to. We can just put it in the write-up underneath. That way they know how to get a hold of you. So we'll have links to all of the things that you would like us to link to in the summary on the Heart Leader podcast page. So they can get a hold of you there.
Very good.
Well, I have one final question for you. Since the way that I came to know you was because you were such a well-known heart leader in our local community, what does it invoke within you to be called a heart leader? To know that your heart is what people know about you the most, and that leadership quality that you possess comes, what people know about you most is that love that flows from you into our community.
I do want to say I'm in a very blessed and unique position. There are so many people that are watching this that are in our community that are extremely heart-centered, and they do it in a way that's not as public. But I have the opportunity, because I'm in the public, of expressing that heart energy. And so to me, I feel like it's an honor, but also in a healthy way, and it's a loving duty. Because I am a public person, I have a public business that people walk in and out of every day, that I get to show people, if they're willing to see, that this is the way you run a business when you're running it from your heart. And so when people walk in the door, I hear it all the time. I hear it every day. I'm not exaggerating. Every day, wow, it just feels different in here. Like, what's going on? And sometimes people be funny about it and they say, is this a cult? Or like, what's like all these people are acting a certain way here and they're smiling and enjoying themselves. Like, what's going on here? And sometimes people say, like, are all the people here, are they all volunteers? Because they don't look like they're working. They just look like they're having fun doing their business. My daughter and I, when we used to have this funny thing we do in the morning before we'd go to Chocolate we get together and have tea or something. And before we go in, she says, Daddy, what do you want to do today? I said, well, I don't know. What do you want to do? She says, let's go play restaurant. And this is kind of like a little joke that we had, a standing joke. And we did for years, that what we do isn't actually go to work. We go to play restaurant. If you remember little kids, when you were a kid and you used to play restaurant, you'd have this imaginary table and you have these imaginary plates. And of course, they were made out of gold or they'd be made out of silver. And you'd have this imagination feast and you'd invite all your best friends over and your friend would be there and say, oh, Sally, this is a salad I made just for you. It's got all your favorite ingredients because I know you love arugula and spinach and here's your mustard dressing for it. Oh, you want more? Here's more. And see, as little kids, that's how we play restaurant. So at Giving Tree Cafe, that's kind of how we play restaurant, is we want to bring back that enchanted feeling of you're just nurtured from this really special depth of love for each other, love for planet, and you can feel it. And then Sally's, oh, this salad is so good. The only thing it would be better is a butter pecan banana split. Oh, I made some. This is my pecan ice cream banana split. I made it special for you, and the chocolate's from Ecuador, and here that's how we play restaurant. And so that's the kind of food we serve. We play restaurant food. So to answer your question, because I'm in a place of more public, I get to be that way. It's an honor. It's a joy. If I were working at a desk someplace, I would have just as much love in my heart. I just wouldn't be able to show it as much because I'm not as public. But I get to have a few hundred people come through the doors every day, and so I get to share that with people. And it's a joy, as you can tell.
I can.
Yeah.
And I get to feel the love, so I'm very grateful. Thank you for being here and sharing the difference that you're making and inspiring others to know what's possible.
Yeah, it's limitless, as you know. And that's part of this new era that we're in, is this limitless possibility. We don't have the shackles of those limits that we had literally for thousands of years. They're off of us now. And so there is no limit. The sky is the limit. And then beyond that, the limit really is beyond our imagination. We can't even imagine what this world is going to be like in 5 or 10 years. It's beyond our comprehension.
I agree with that.
It's a really beautiful time to be on this planet right now.
I agree.
Yeah.
And thank you all for tuning in for another episode of the Heart Leader podcast and for listening in for David Warr. I'm going to get it correct. David Warr. He is a peaceful warrior, and all that he's doing with the Giving Tree Cafe. We are indeed releasing the Art of Cooking from the Heart coming up at the beginning of January. So keep an eye out for that. You will find it through Suivera.org, and we'll be sure to let everyone know who is on our email list too. So if you're not on, make certain that you head on over to Suivera.org and sign up for that. And as always, we have our free download for the month. It is the Giving and Receiving Journal. It'll be great to have as we head into this new year. So download that and kick off the new year knowing how you enjoy giving and receiving. Until next time, I'm your host, Amber, and I look forward to seeing you in the Suivera community.